Good morning, everyone. Lovely day. We had quite a few boats come in. We had one come in on the rocks over at Caracas, the lighthouse over by Chonya, this morning, but everyone was okay. We got everyone off okay. We've had a lot of boats. As you can see, the sea's very calm out there. It's very calm. So, right, what I want to do this morning, because we've had a lot of problems with international rescue and their bullying tactics and the way they want to take over the north coast of Lesbos, and the way the right wing of Molivos have let the Americans in to take over the north coast of Lesbos. What I want to do this morning, I want to read you a statement of it was the Popular Assembly meeting on the 9th of October in Molivos. Okay, we'll read it and see what you think. At the Popular Assembly meeting on the 9th of October in Molivos, the following was decided by the residents of Molivos, Petra, in attendance. 1. The below decision of regarding care of refugees, immigrants, is based on what was decided in the Popular Assembly of the 25th of September. 2. The non-negotiable and irrevocable position of residents of wider region Molivos Petra is that in the touristic region of the island that receives and manages the 80% of total tourist economy of the island, no hotspot or centre of reception and registration of refugees and migrants shall be created. So this says the non-negotiable. So they're not having any reception centre or anything else, okay? And registration. No hotspot or centre of reception and registration of refugees and immigrants shall be created. This would mean the annihilation of the place and the local residents, with the tragic economic and social consequences, not only for the places in question but the whole island. So they don't want these places because it will be, it would destroy the island. This decision for the survival of all residents of the region is decided and will be defended vigorously with every legal and fair means and way. Number 4. The Popular Assembly requires the Mayor again and immediately the clearing out of innumerous and various NGOs, domestic and foreign, that have collected in our region, practicing unverifiable activities, increasing through their activities the number of refugees arriving. Interesting. Thus, further burdening the local society, while disparaging absolutely the need of the local residents. Okay. 5. If it's asked that only the serious and well-known NGOs, such as Doctors of the World and IRC, International Rescue, which have demonstrated respect for the society in which they are guests, will be allowed to stay. The others have no place here and are harming the locality and intensifying the flows of immigrants. 6. In addition, those who remain must be compelled to move all their activities to Malaga, Ferma, on the road between Eftelu and Scala Sicamenia. At no other point inside or outside the towns shall any activity aid the refugees be allowed. 7. If this decision of the Popular Assembly is not immediately implemented, a body will be elected to ensure that it is implemented by every legal means and way. Our towns will not be open to every so-called humanitarian activity by whoever chooses to come here and whatever reason. 8. Finally, it is repeated that the Popular Assembly and the Fores Tourismos of Molivos should meet with everyone involved to find out best solutions to the problem for all sides, refugees or immigrants, but also local population. 9. They pointed out the need for coordination among all forces, local government, and emergency situation in order to find a consensus solution that is rational and not disastrous, and that will not be found unacceptable or imposed upon the local residents. Okay. So this is a really interesting one. This is, obviously, it asks only serious and well-known NGOs, it says, such as Doctors of the World and IRC, International Rescue Committee. You've got the UNHCR, you've got all the other big aid agencies and everything else. I would like to know why the right wing of Molivos decided that International Rescue would be the only people they would like here with Doctors of the World. I mean, Doctors of the World won't come up here because they run a Moria camp, and that, I know that. And they've never been up here. So I think that Doctors of the World thing was just put into this document to make it look a bit better. But I would like to know that if they don't want any other NGOs here, and a lot of the NGOs have been up here for a long time, then all of a sudden they want International Rescue, the Americans to run the whole north coast of Lesbos for Molivos people. I would like to know how this came about, Did they just think, oh, let's have the Americans running the north coast of Lesbos? That'd be nice. Did they think International Rescue is obviously the best aid agency to do it? If they did, I'd like to know how they come by this, because International Rescue, before this camp went up, was infrastructure. It wasn't running camps. There's big questions to be asked on this one. There's a lot of questions how this came about, how this town gave permission for an NGO that is not basically an NGO that runs camps. It's infrastructure more than anything. How it came about to make this decision. What was the incentives? And it does say that the non-negotiable and irrevocable position of residents of wider region Molibot is that the touristic region of the island that manages 80%, etc., etc. No hotspot or centre of reception. Now, it says the non-negotiable and irrevocable position. No hotspot or centre of reception. They gave International Rescue the permission to build a reception area here. So, basically, you've gone against your own bloody words here. You're saying that there is not going to be, this is non-negotiable, you say. There's not going to be a reception here. And then you give permission to an NGO that is basically infrastructure, not a proper NGO, regarding camps and stuff, and looking after refugees. You gave them permission to put a reception area in. I wonder why you did that. I wonder why you did that. I can't just see an NGO turning up and then the right wing of Molibos jumping out on the streets and say, oh, please come and put a reception area in for us, especially after you said you're not going to have one and it's non-negotiable. International Rescue's been throwing money everywhere. And isn't it funny that we have, like, this camp being put up in the middle of nowhere, and a lot of the people that abused us and the refugees all summer are running this camp for International Rescue? Isn't it funny everything's okay now? Isn't it funny, all this hatred towards refugees, all of a sudden you have one NGO that really, it was an infrastructure NGO at the time, given permission by this town to run a reception area after it said there was not going to be any and it's non-negotiable. What twigged them to bring in the Americans to run the whole north coast of Lesbos? There's a lot of questions to be asked here. A lot of questions to be asked here. You know, we know what's going on out here. We know how much money's flying about and the briberies and everything else is going on out here. You know, it's going on all over. But I would like to know what went on here. I really would. You know, in this situation, I would like to know what went on here. It seems very, very strange that all of a sudden an American NGO comes in here and it's allowed to run, and you say that no other NGOs are allowed to run when all the other NGOs out there have been saving lives for months and months and months by the thousands. And you bring someone in and say they're allowed to, and they have no experience at all with bringing in boats, no experience at all with feeding, clothing, etc., with refugees, no experience at all. And you let him in to run the north coast of Lesbos. And now they're pushing everyone out, and the thugs they've employed are having a great time out here. You're putting refugees' lives at risk because of what? Because of what? What changed? You know, I think it's quite obvious to most people what's going on here. And I want to put it on record. We had lawyers here yesterday. International Rescue has no more legal rights out on these beaches than anyone else. No more rights than anyone else. And for them to come out on the beaches and tell volunteers to go away because they're running the north coast now is no. That is wrong. They have no more legal right than anyone else out here on these beaches. And for this town to give them, to say they have the rights, is wrong. There needs to be questions here, a lot of questions about the people that brought them in. There needs to be a lot of questions about how they negotiated all this. Yeah? And there needs to be a lot of questions who was in the negotiations and what went on in the negotiations. There's a lot more NGOs more capable of dealing with this situation than International Rescue. There's a lot more NGOs and aid agencies more qualified to deal with this situation than International Rescue. Why is it the right wing here decided to bring them in and no one else, and to kick everyone else out? Interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. I know my opinions. You know, what's going on out here is very, very wrong. Very wrong. And as I said yesterday, this hasn't finished and it won't finish yet. There's a lot more questions going to be asked. Yeah. And what gives the right wing of Molivos the right to bring an American company in and tell them they can run the north coast? That decision should be made to the central government and to the Mytilene. Mytilene, where the mayor is, who is elected. What gives individuals who run associations the right to make the decisions up here they have made? And give a company that has no experience in this field their infrastructure. They have no experience of looking after refugees. What gives them the right to put this American company in charge of this coastline? They have no rights to do that. They have no rights at all. And a lot of questions need to be asked here. A lot of questions. Okay. Goodbye.